Anyway, as has been mentioned, starting tomorrow, we're going to have a 7-day fast as a church community. Now, we started, the first time I remember doing a fast was in 2019. We did a 21-day fast. And not surprisingly, the next year we did a 3-day fast. The everybody just kind of went, whoa, on the fast. So we did 3 days the second year. And then after that, we settled into a 7-day fast. That seemed to be about right for the community. And we've been doing that over the past 3 years. And so the purpose of this has been and continues to be for us to set aside at the beginning of the year our usual daily tasks and prepare in terms of eating and especially social media, and to set those things aside and create space in our day to spend more time in prayer and worship of God. And this year, we have 2 main goals that we will offer to you to take up. And that is, number 1, and it's really the most important thing. If this is all we accomplish this week, it will be spending time with God, drawing closer to Him, examining our heart condition before God. And if our hearts are not in the right place, or if we find ourselves just so distracted, or some of us may even have a divided heart, you know that you're not wholly devoted to the Lord, then this is not a good place to be in. And this week is a great time to start out the first of the year and bring that before God and get our hearts right with God. So that is the number 1 priority that we have. The second thing is that we are wanting to seek God's guidance and direction for the life of the church, and also for our own lives. But we really want to ask, as a church family, what is the direction, what is the mission that God has for our church family for 2024? So that we are in agreement with that we move together as a church in that, and also we're asking that same question for ourselves. I'm sure every single one of us in this room is wondering what's happening this year. And some of you are at a crossroads and are looking for direction specifically for what is next in your life. And so the second thing is guidance and direction from God for the church and for us individually. And so I want us just to take a look at each of these first. The first one is coming and spending time with God, examining our hearts before Him, and testing our heart condition. And I want us to read together from David. There's nobody quite like David in the Old Testament who just really bears his heart for all of us to be able to see and identify with. Listen to these words in Psalm 27, verses 4 through 6. One thing I have asked from the Lord that I shall seek. Only one thing He wants. One thing, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in His temple. For in the days of trouble, He will conceal me in His tabernacle. In the secret place of His tent, He will hide me. He will lift me up on a rock. And now my head will be lifted up above my enemies around me. And I will offer in His tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing, yes, I will sing praises to the Lord. That's an amazing picture this longing just to be in God's presence, come into and sit at his feet and just gaze upon his beauty. Just let that sink deep into his heart. And of course, we see a beautiful picture of this in the New Testament. Mary, the sister of Martha, who sat at Jesus' feet. And she's just listening and capturing every word he said. And Jesus said, she has chosen the better thing, and it will not be taken from her. God will always honor us if we choose him. Choose to sit at his feet and just gaze upon his beauty and to listen to his word. David also, in this passage, talks about days of trouble. And he had many days of trouble in his life. And perhaps there are some of you here that are experiencing days of trouble right now. And that trouble may just be in your emotions, the uncertainty and anxiety of your circumstances, for your family, for your ministry, or about your future. What did David do in his days of trouble? Well, he was already in the temple. And he just ran into the throne room of God. And he said, God's going to hide me in this place. There's a special place he's just going to put me. Now, just today, Ksenia and I were playing hiding something. Hide something in the room, and she would have to come and find it. There's something about, for a child, to have someone hide them, shelter them, protect them. And that's what David says. I run into the throne room of God in my day of trouble, and I sit there as he protects me in his presence. But David also spent a lot of time in fasting throughout his life, especially in difficult times. When he was under attack, which was often, or when he was fasting for someone else, or when he had sinned and known that he had fallen short of God, he humbled himself through fasting, coming before the Lord in that time. He did this often in order to reorder his heart before God. And that's really what we're looking for this week. This is what I'm looking for this week for myself, to reorder my life and my heart, to make sure that God is in the center. And as we begin this new year as a church family, we want to take the time, examine our hearts. Where are we with the Lord? And if we need to reorder our desires to start this year, to devote ourselves to the Lord, let's do that. In fact, I decided we'd do something a little differently right now. I wanted to have the worship team come up and just sing into this, to sing in relationship to putting God back in the center. So listen to the words. Let it sink in and just examine your hearts as we listen to the music.
Be my soul. Jesus.
The second purpose, thank you. The second purpose that we have for this week is seeking God's guidance and direction for our church for this coming year. And obviously for our own lives. What is the direction? What is the mission that God has for us for this, as a church family for this coming year? And I want to be clear about this because he can speak through anyone in this room who's a follower of Jesus. Doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter your maturity or lack of maturity. God will speak and can speak through anyone in this room to this church. I was going to seminary in Canada, and I heard about my roommate was going to a church where one of the teenagers stood up in one of their prayer meetings and said, I think God is saying that we as a church are supposed to feed the poor in downtown Vancouver. I think she was 17 or 18 years old. But the church said, you know what? I think that's a word from the Lord. And they took that as part of their vision for the church. They had a team of people that would prepare the food, and another team of people that went down into the city and handing out food and praying for people all over the city. And I got involved with this through my roommate. And I went down there every Friday night, met this team. We were going into methadone hospitals where people were at the end of their lives. We were praying over people. It was a Book of Acts stuff going on. And all of this was because a word was spoken by a teenager in the church. The whole church got activated through that word. So I'm looking out here and I'm saying, you said earlier, we're in a small country, there's small things, but big things come out of small places, especially in the scriptures.
Yes.
What good thing can come out of Nazareth, somebody once asked. The salvation of the world came out of Nazareth as well.
Yeah.
What good thing can come out of this church in this small country? Maybe the next great movement of God. It'll speak through one person this week who's listening to the voice of God. Any one of you can receive that word. And we will listen, I promise you that, as a leadership, because we don't have the corner on the market of God speaking.
Yes.
Everyone can hear the voice of God who is coming to God. And so I just want to release you to receive from God and come and speak to us what God might put on your heart. And one of the things we're doing this week, I'll just put this in here, and that is we're meeting, not Monday night, it's the first night of the fast, everybody's sort of like, well, okay, trying to settle into your fast. But then this Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, we're meeting in different people's homes in order to pray together. And this was something that happened last year that was fantastic. I think that was the best part. We met every evening somewhere, and we just prayed and shared together what God was putting on our hearts. That was so encouraging. And so I'm going to give, there's going to be a list. We have one on the back table. You people that are my age, you'll take one because you need a piece of paper. You feel better about that. And all the people with phones will go, as they walk by, get the same information, and they'll have it on their phone, and they won't lose it. But anyway, so that the places and the addresses, phone numbers are all on that piece of paper. Okay, so plan to come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then on Saturday, as we're gathering right here in the room, finishing sort of we're going to break the fast on Sunday, but the prayer and worship on Saturday is a really rich time together. And so we believe God has been in process of preparing our church for what he wants to do in and through us this coming year. And of course, we're also asking that many of you, there's some graduating this year, or you have situations in your family or your jobs where you need direction, you need guidance. And this week will be a wonderful week of just asking God to speak to you, and we can be praying for one another as well. Oh, it's battery. Battery changes every week. Okay, let's do that. I believe they call this a pit stop. Back. Okay. Thank you, Gail. And so, the question then, of course, is why fasting? Can we not seek the Lord without doing the fasting? Well, of course we can. We do that most of the time anyway. But there's something about the spiritual discipline of fasting that helps us to put us in the place of receiving from God that we might not otherwise. So we can more fully enter into his presence when we are setting things aside, distractions that we have during our daily life. And that's the first thing. But the second thing is it does just exactly what it's supposed to do, and that is putting our fleshly desires and challenging us and putting our fleshly, bodily desires under control and saying, you know what, you're going to take a time out while I'm going to open my heart up in the spirit to what God is speaking to me. And that hunger is a reminder of the hunger I am to have for God. And here's the thing. Here's the truth. You ready? God does not need our fasts. We need our fasts. Okay? The fasts are for us. God is not impressed with our fast. He just knows that that's something we need as a spiritual discipline from time to time in order for us to get ourselves in the right place to be able to receive from God. So we need to remember that God does not need our fasts. We need our fasts. Okay. Richard Foster, who wrote the classic book, Celebration of Discipline, he said in his chapter on fasting, more than any other discipline, fasting reveals the things that control us. We get an amen?
Amen.
Okay, thank you. And then John Piper says, fasting reveals the measure of food's mastery over us, or television, or computers, or whatever we submit to again and again to conceal or hide the weakness of our hunger for God. I know I need to spend time with God. Oh, but somebody's sent me an email. I better check that email out. And then the next thing I know, I'm surfing a very long surfing expedition on the web, and a half hour, 45 minutes go by. I'm sure I'm the only one that does that. But if you can try to identify with me, the distractions of daily life, taking us away from the things that we know that we are supposed to be doing and will benefit us. So, by fasting, we set aside some of the activities, the eating, the social media, so that the focus then is God. Focus is not the fast, right? The focus is God. But I can remember the first time I fasted. It was a 3-day fast. And let me tell you, the focus of the fast was the fast. I don't know that I ever got around to focusing on God. I was so focused on this fast and waiting and counting down the minutes until this thing was over that I think that fast was a pretty big failure, but, okay, that was my first try. Next time, I think I was able to focus on God just a little bit more. And so, fasting is something we learn by doing. Now, how many of you grew up in churches where you did a lot of fasting on a regular basis? Your churches, okay. And you'll see, primarily from the East, that people have learned to fast, right? People from the West are like, what? You want me to deny myself something? Are you out of your mind? But anyway, so it's typically, it's something that I have actually been learning from people who have grown up with this tradition. And I've been following after that. For example, communion. We started announcing communions on Friday before the Sunday that we're having communion, because there are those members in our church that fast for the 3 days leading up to taking communion. That's part of their church tradition and part of their heart preparation. I think that's pretty awesome. And that's a lesson to me. Okay? So, I just want to talk about a few practical things with fasting itself. Because, first of all, to define it, biblical fasting, it's voluntary and intentional abstaining from eating food, all or some of it, for a specific period of time. Biblical fasting is 100% about food and abstaining from food. So that's a question that comes up. And I had that question this week. Are there other ways that we can enter into a fast if I'm not able to abstain from food? For example, my situation just came through my major medical experience. I'm not in a position to not eat food for 7 days. I've got medication I have to take. I'm pretty weak compared to where I was last year doing this fast. And so I need to modify. So I'm going to engage in something like the Daniel fast, where I abstain from certain types of food, but I need to eat this week. And so that's going to be true for some of you as well. I would encourage you to challenge yourself as much as you can without knocking yourself out. But if you've been doing fasting, I would challenge you to do as much as you can in terms of the food aspect. But it may be, and I've said this before, if we were to put down our phones for a week, and I would tell you that first 3 days, I bet you half the people in this room would be going through withdrawals. Yeah. Okay? You'd be shaking physically without your phones. Okay? And, and you'd be going through the withdrawal symptoms, you'd be irritable and angry and upset, your roommates would be so unhappy that you started this fast. They'd be trying to hand you your phone and say, just check your emails, just please. And you say, no. But social media, I think, has really gotten a hold of a lot of us. And if we can set that aside, that's going to be one of the things that I do. Check it once a day for maybe 30 minutes with my wife's supervision. And that's it. The rest of the day, in fact, I have my phone set up so it gives me a little signal on my hearing aid. Beep, beep, I got something on my phone. And nobody else in the room knows that I have it. That's turning off tonight. All right, I'm not going to know. For 7 days, I'm already shaking in my boots. But anyway, there are other ways of taking a fast that will have as much of an impact as not eating food. Okay. Now, I don't think I need to convince anybody biblically about fasting, but I do want to take a look at Jesus for a moment, because we remember that before Jesus started his public ministry, he was led by the Holy Spirit into the wilderness. And he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. And he became hungry, and then he was tested. In the fast, let's read that, Ted. I think we have that up there. Oh, we did, okay. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And after he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he then became hungry. This fast was a preparation for his ministry, public ministry. And that's a word that came up this week, is preparation. And I've just kind of seized that word, that God is in the process of preparing us for a ministry, together as a church and as individuals in it. And so the fasting time is a testing time. It's a part of the preparation to prepare us for our ministry that God has for us. And it was the time when Jesus put first things first. If he remembered what it was he came for. The enemy was testing him on each point that was involving his specific ministry, why he came to earth at all. And Jesus had to overcome each and every one of those temptations. So Jesus fasted, that's a given. But other people also fasted, and Jesus taught on fasting. So I just want to read this section from Matthew, from the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount is the spiritual playbook of how the kingdom of God works. And this is right in the middle of it. Jesus is assuming that we're going to fast. Verse 16, whenever you fast, do not put on a gloomy face, as the hypocrites do, for they neglect their appearance, so that they will be noticed by men when they are fasting. Truly I say to you, they have their reward in full. But you, when you fast, anoint your head, wash your face, so that your fasting will not be noticed by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. So it's clear that Jesus took for granted that his disciples would fast. And he was teaching them the right way of doing it. We're doing this for God's approval, not for the approval of others. I mean, think about the difference of the rewards. One reward is somebody looks at me and goes, well, now look at Paul, he's fasting. What a stud. What a spiritual stud. That's my reward. That's it. That thought that somebody had that maybe I don't even hear is the extent of my reward. Compared with God, who sees in secret, will reward me with something that may even last for eternity. There's no comparison here. Do it for God, get the reward that's going to last and actually mean something to us, than trying to get somebody else's approval. Okay, so, and then there are, just in terms of how to prepare for our fast. I see you're all excited. You are all just sitting on the edge of your seats. I know, the beginning is always the toughest, but there are some things that we need to think through. The number one thing is to make sure that we understand the purpose for why we are doing our fast, our individual fast. Okay. And then once we understand the purpose, then we need to set the parameters. We need to determine what kind of a fast are we doing. And then we need to plan for it. And you've got exactly, 6 hours to plan for your fast that's starting tomorrow. I realize that's not a lot of time, but so the first thing is to have a clear purpose. And I put some of the purposes up on the screen because the first two are the ones that we're offering and suggesting to you. That draw near to God, go deeper with God, get your heart reordered to Him. That really has to be the first thing. Because if you don't have that, we don't have anything. So let's get our hearts right before God. And then the second is to seek God's guidance for our church, for ourselves, situations in our own life. Another one could be fasting is a biblical way to humble ourselves before God. Perhaps we know that we're not where we're supposed to be. We have sin in our lives. And fasting is a great way to break our will in a positive way and humble ourselves before God. David humbled himself often through fasting to get his heart right with God. Fasting can help God break sin patterns, bad habits, and addictions. If you want to break bad habits and addictions, fasting has to become a regular part of our lives. There's no way. I mean, remember Jesus said this one only comes out through fasting and prayer. He's talking about casting a demon out of somebody's life. But we can know that some of the strongholds in our lives, so strong, it's going to take fasting and prayer to be able to break that stronghold in our lives. So let's do that as part of our purpose. Fasting in order to ask God for breakthroughs. Again, this is similar to what I just said, but you can have a problem in a relationship, personal issue with another person, or ministry, and this is just putting your focus and attention on that during the fast and help get a breakthrough. We want breakthroughs. Friends, I want a breakthrough. We want to see breakthroughs in this church, like what you were saying. We want to see people coming to Christ through the ministry of our church. We're having opportunities for the Spirit to fill us. Remember, being filled with the Holy Spirit so that we can proclaim Jesus, people, like we talked about last week. We want that. But I think it takes prayer and fasting to get us in the position for God to move in new ways. And then, of course, fasting can increase our desire to love, care for others outside of the church, to have that outward focus, to feel God's heart for the lost and want to be part of the salt and light, to reach them with the good news. We've got good news. We've got the message that people are looking for. So fasting can increase our desire and love for people. So there are many good purposes for having fast. Pick a couple of those for yourself and write that down. And once you establish what you understand the purpose is, then you can go to the parameters. This is the small print, the fine print of the contract. This is the terms and conditions. What kind of a fast am I going to engage in? Am I going for the water only, 7 days, maximum fast, with an occasional cup of tea, thrown in for a reward? Or am I going to do something like a partial fast or a Daniel fast? When I say Daniel, in the book of Daniel, he abstained from eating tasty foods and other things that people were eating, and he ate only vegetables. And again, what specifically is going to be your fast? What are you going to abstain from? Where are you going to hide that from? And those things need to be determined. You need to do that today. Say, okay, this is what it's going to be. This food is going to be this. Social media is going to be this, and whatever else you need to sacrifice in order to free up more time. Write it down. Write down your terms and conditions together with your purpose. And then, of course, you need to plan. You need to stop by the store on the way home tonight. Pick up those bottles of water or whatever it is that's going to fit your fast. And try to do that all at once so you're not, I mean, that's half the thing what we're doing during the week. We're going to the store how many times a week to get food? If we can eliminate some of that, that would be helpful. All right, so you have the parameters, you have the purpose, you have the parameters, and you have the plan, all right? Now, during the week, when your heart is just crying out for your food or for your phone, maybe equally between the two, this is when we renew our focus and say, I've got to come to the Lord. This is why I'm doing this fast. This hunger is driving me to God. So we confess our weakness, ask God to strengthen us, confess our irritation and upset and our annoyance at not having food or not having our phone. And we just let those things draw us to God. Maybe a time to do journaling during the week, writing things down. Guys, I know you love this stuff, but gals tend to do a better job at this. And know that the first 3 days are the hardest. They always are, especially if you're doing the food thing. First 3 days are the toughest, and then you're kind of in a state of delirium. Days, no, I'm just kidding. It gets easier, say day 4 and past that. And I have found that to be true as well. And remember that the whole point of this is to be with God. And what better than to spend time with God and